everyone, welcome back to our Inside Early Careers series. This week I'm joined by David, our founder, and Fiona, who is one of our senior associate instructors. And we're going to talk about a topic that every organisation is talking about at the minute, and that is how managers can bring out the very best in their Gen Z graduates. So hi everyone, thank you for joining me.
I guess.
So David, I'm going to come to you first. And before we get into the detail, I want to ask, why are the early months with a line manager so influential in shaping a graduate's performance and confidence?
Thanks, Jess. Great question. Well, I guess look, our view on this is driven by the feedback that we get from the thousands of graduates that we help start their careers with some of the world's biggest firms. And the feedback we hear is that their line manager is absolutely critical in that in those first few weeks after they've joined the firm, gone through their training and joined their team, the line manager really gives the clarity to the role, what's expected of the graduate in their job, what they can do, who they should be leaning on. So that's critical information in shaping those first few months. And I guess what we see when it goes well, it's fantastic. They're really in a safe space. They're getting that coaching from the line manager in terms of embedding in with their team and finding their feet and starting to succeed in the role. And if it doesn't go so well, we see that can really delay or cause months of delay in the development of the graduate when they're moving into their role. And I guess the final point from me is we know a lot of the line managers are maybe just a couple of years out of being actually in the graduate program themselves, or maybe they've been managing teams of experienced engineers as opposed to new graduates, where things are a little bit different. So critical role in the success of a graduate, and really about shaping those first few months is getting them off to a successful start with their team.
I see. And then Fiona, that leads us perfectly to my first question for you. So I think Gen Z tend to have a reputation for being entitled or difficult. Would you say that is a truth or a myth?
Interesting question. Yes, I think it's something we hear a lot as well in terms of meeting with managers, etc., on their training. I would like to say it's mostly myth, or at least it's just a little bit misframed in terms of our experience around it, because many of those stereotypes stem from older generational managers' expectations being really applied without any adjustment for those graduates around it. So research suggests that what looks like entitlement may just be a mismatch in those expectations. So for example, they can sometimes be called job hoppers. And that's a little bit of misinterpretation, because the reality is, as David said there, Gen Z graduates are more likely to stay if they see that their growth and their alignment in values is linked to the organization. And if they don't see that, if they don't experience that early on, then they are happy to move to an organization that will meet those expectations. So I think it's important for managers to kind of do that little bit of reframe and think about, instead of labeling that behavior, what they might want to do is recognize the benefit from those underlying needs, because the graduates want meaningful work. They want clear pathways and they want authentic communication. That's really simply what they're asking for. And that's a little bit misframed then as being difficult.
That's really interesting. So, bearing that in mind, what would you say is the best management style when it comes to Gen Z?
David talked to it there earlier. It's the idea of coach rather than command. Yes, super important in terms of the that graduate population. If we think about them as a group of individuals, they've had more academic support given the pandemic, etc., that they've been through. They have digital tools and more exposure to digital tools, and they've grown up in collaborative learning environments. So to suddenly shift to this space where a manager tells them what to do can really feel quite stale for that population. So when we talk about coaching, we're talking about asking questions. We're talking about encouraging reflection. We're talking about co-designing how they will apply and approach tasks, etc. And one of the words that we're hearing lots and lots from those graduates is this idea of providing opportunities for autonomy around that. And if managers use that management style, then they'll build that trust and that engagement with the Gen Z graduates around that. So start with things like, what do you think we should try, rather than here's what you will do, and facilitate their learning rather than just direct and tell them what to do around that. So the other thing that I'd say is super important, it supports that coaching, is the concept of feedback. Again, I think David alluded to it in his introduction there. It's really important that managers offer that feedback and offer it constructively to Gen Z graduates so they know how they're getting on. They want immediate, actionable feedback so they know how they can develop and how they can improve, but also that they feel that their development is supported.
Totally. That's also super interesting. And then when it comes to keeping them engaged in the long term, what would you say the best strategy is?
So there's something around having those meaningful career conversations really early. Just not leaving it until they think that someone's already considering leaving. It's probably too late at that stage in terms of having those conversations. You want to get in there early and map out potential growth trajectories for the graduates. You want to be able to link their current role to future possibilities and co-design with the graduates what those stepping stones look like, because they won't be the same for all of the graduates in relation to that. If we look at what research tells us, it tells us that Gen Z's job retention is significantly influenced by clear career development and growth opportunities. So having that dedicated session early, where do you want to be in the next 2 to 3 years? And once you've identified that, what are the skills that you need to get you there?
And then when it comes to the topic of retention, what role would you say inclusion plays in that?
It's huge for the Gen Z population because that sense of belonging and psychological safety are foundational, Jess. They want to feel that they can speak up. They want to feel that they can contribute, and they want to feel that they're working in an environment that doesn't feel rigid or that doesn't feel closed or feel that they have to fit into a mold. If we create that sort of space, then they're more likely to disengage. So I would say that inclusive leadership isn't a nice to have. It's probably central to retaining and engaging young talent.
And then coming on to other common challenges like imposter syndrome, for example, which I think a lot of people at many levels of the organization probably experience sometimes. What would you say? And confidence gaps as well.
It's really interesting because I think we can diminish almost that confidence gap in the younger population. And these are really important for those early career graduates because what what we tend to find is they present with great confidence. But I think what we need to be careful as managers is that we're not assuming and making the mistake that that confidence brings, or that confidence in the workplace is a replacement for competence. So just like everyone at every level of their career, behind that apparent confidence, these young graduates can have feelings of, I'm the youngest here. I don't know enough yet. I'm not sure that I belong. So as a manager, I think it's really important. And the point that David made in the introduction, I think is super important in relation to this, that we normalize those feelings. If I've been in your shoes a couple of years before, it's really nice for me to be able to tell you, I felt like that too. 2 years ago, I was you, 3 years ago, whatever, in relation to that. The other thing that managers can do is build those early wins. Set your graduates up to succeed, give them assignments that they can succeed at, and recognize those wins publicly. That will go a long way in building that confidence. The other thing is, we talked about it earlier, this concept of autonomy, but autonomy with support. I think that's really important. What we don't want to do is just throw people in at the deep end. We want to let them have ownership, but we also need to be available as managers to provide those safety nets. And one of the other things that's really, really useful in terms of helping build that confidence and build that, overcome some of those imposter feelings in that population, is creating little peer learning sets. So pairing them up with another new starter or someone who's slightly more experienced than them, Jess, is a brilliant way for our graduates to feel part of a cohort or part of a community rather than being isolated. So proactively addressing confidence and belonging will help reduce that drop off in engagement for the Gen Z graduates.
Great. Well, thank you so much for those super interesting insights, Fiona. And if you'd like to hear more about how we're helping retain those Gen Z graduates, then you can head over to our Early Careers website today. Thank you.